Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Development Standards Committee. This meeting is being recorded, but it's also being broadcast live on the Angus Council YouTube channel. So I can remind all those joining us remotely to turn their microphones to mute, please, until they wish to speak and remotely. Any apologies for absence, Fiona?
There's no apologies, Convener.
Thank you. Do any members have declarations of interest or statements of transparency on any items on the agenda this morning? Nothing I can see. Thank you. Agenda item 3 on building warrants. The committee is asked to note that during the period 2nd of March to 5th of April 2024, a total of 50 building warrants, 4 demolition warrants and 19 amendment to warrants have been approved, with an estimated cost of £5,700,325, and a copy of the approved warrants have been sent to every member. Is that noted? Thank you. Delegated decisions, agenda item 4. Committee again is asked to note that during the same period, 2nd of March to 5th of April 2024, a total of 77 applications have been approved and 1 refused under the Planning Acts through the scheme of delegation to officers. And again, a copy of the list of delegated applications has been sent to every member. Again, is that noted, committee? Thank you. The minute of the previous meeting on agenda item 5, submit for approval as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of this committee held last month, 12th of March 2024. Are there any comments or adjustments required to the minutes? If not, are the minutes approved? Thank you. Right, we have 2 planning applications on the agenda this morning, but before we get to that, agenda item 6 relates to report 114/24, and this report seeks the appointment of a differently constituted Development Management Review Committee to consider afresh the application for review in respect of the refusal of planning permission for the erection of a crematorium and associated structures on planning application number 20/00830/Full at land northeast of Duntroon House in Duntroon. Before we proceed with this, I'm just going to ask Mrs. Patterson to give a brief bit of background to the reason for the formulation of the DMRC.
Thank you, Convener. Members will recall, as Convener has outlined, that a planning application had been submitted for land north east of Duntroon, House Duntroon, for a crematorium, which was refused under delegated powers. The Development Management Review Committee, at its meeting on the 14th of March, agreed to uphold the appeal and grant permission subject to conditions, which were subsequently agreed at a follow-up meeting of the Development Management Review Committee on the 13th of June 2023. The decision of the Development Management Review Committee was subsequently appealed to the Court of Session, and on the 12th of March this year, the Court of Session allowed that appeal, indicating some issues with the decision notice that was issued in the context of that appeal. And they determined that the application by Duntroon Limited against the refusal of planning permission in respect of the erection of the crematorium and associated structures be considered afresh by a differently constituted Development Management Review Committee. Following this decision, the committee is therefore required to establish a differently constituted Development Management Review Committee to consider the application afresh for review. Previously, we have members from Development Standards Committee who are able to serve on the Development Management Review Committee, and those members who have already considered or substituted for a member of the Development Management Review Committee to consider Duntroon are therefore not able to appoint themselves to the differently constituted committee. As conveners outlined, the committee is therefore requested to appoint up to 6 members to form that differently constituted committee. There is a significant volume with the application and the appeal documentation. There are a number of pages for that. There is no described time period to consider that, but we would like to consider that as soon as possible. We're unable to schedule a particular date just now, but gives members sufficient time to get up to speed on the volume of information that is before them to allow us to pencil in a date for that initial committee meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. So, following the decision of the Court of Session, this committee is required to establish a differently constituted DMRC to consider the application for review. The members of the DMRC involved in the initial consideration of the review and subsequently the decision to uphold the appeal were Councillors Duff, Braes, Dorn and Beattie, who substituted for Councillor Durno, and Councillor Gavin Nicholl. In terms of this Council scheme of governance, the Development Management Review Committee shall consist of up to 6 members to be drawn from the membership of this Development Standards Committee. The committee is therefore requested to appoint up to 6 members to form a differently constituted DMRC, thus excluding those who previously considered the initial appeal against refusal. For the avoidance of doubt, this newly formed DMRC will only deal with the application for review in respect of land north east of Duntroon House, Duntroon. After that, we also have the committee has also requested to appoint a convener for this committee only. So we have up to 6 members to appoint to the DMRC, and I know I have had communication from members already, and that councillors, myself, Councillor Clark and Councillor Durno are happy to be appointed to the DMRC on behalf of the administration. It leaves, and I know Councillor Mell would say that he can't act and has a declaration of interest and knowledge of too much knowledge on this account. So also Councillor McLaren has mentioned to me that he also knows the family and would step aside from this as well. So we really have only Councillor Gall and Councillor Stewart to act on the committee as well. So I know Councillor Gall has mentioned to me that he's happy to do this. Councillor Stewart, are you the same?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. So for avoidance of doubt, Councillors Cheap, Clark, Durno and Stewart will form this newly appointed DMRC. I also now need to seek nominations for a convener of this DMRC. Is there anyone? Councillor Clark.
Thank you and good morning, colleagues. Thank you, convener. I would like to propose Councillor Cheap for that role.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Is anybody seconding that? Councillor Durno, thank you. And is anybody else wishes to nominate the appointment? No? Okay, thank you. I'll accept that role as convener. As Mrs Parson has said, meetings of this newly founded DMRC will take place in due course. There's a substantial volume, as she said, of information to be considered and understood. So we will take our time on this one, not be hurried on it, and in due course we will have our first meeting. Thank you very much. Right. Agenda item 7 relates to report 115/24 for planning application 24. Okay.
I think it was someone that was admitting Stuart Clark. So
okay. Sorry, for planning application 24/00044/full by W9A Investments Limited for the change of use and internal alterations of a building to form the Park Hotel at 1 and 2 Queen's Close and 113 High Street, Montrose. Over to you, Mr Hunter.
Thank you, convener, and good morning, members. As you've indicated, the first planning application today relates to a building at Queen's Close and High Street, Montrose. If we move on, we see the extent of the application site just outlined in red on the plan on the screen. To give some context, we have the High Street located to the west or to the left of the application site, Montrose Townhouse, and the steeple located just a short distance to the south and southwest. Aerial view that shows the application site in some context, application property itself, just identified with the cursor on the screen. So the upper floors of the building that we see here, again, draw attention to the High Street and to Baltic Street that lies just a short distance to the east at the bottom of the screen that you can see here. So Queen's Close runs between the High Street and Baltic Street, just down the channel that you can see formed by the buildings in this area. So application property itself straddles the close. This is a public route. It's a council maintained footpath that runs between High Street and Baltic Street. Building itself, you can perhaps see just zoomed in a little here, so the upper floors of the building in the central part of the image. So you can see the dormer windows serving the property in the attic space, and the 2 floors below that, which would accommodate some of the accommodation that we're looking at. The site is close to the town centre. It's within the defined town centre. It's a listed building. It's within the conservation area, and our policies are generally supportive of this type of use, the serviced accommodation, the apartment, hotel type accommodation, within locations that are close to the town centre, well accessible to services. Similarly, our policies are very supportive of proposals that seek to make better use of vacant listed buildings and that seek to ensure investment in the fabric of properties within our conservation areas. Just looking at the plans of the existing building, we have the ground floor just at the bottom of the image. Currently accommodates a stairwell and an office. On the first floor, we have 5 bedrooms associated with the former use of the building as a homeless unit. So 5 bedrooms at the first floor level with associated ensuite and kitchen type facilities. The existing second floor of the building at the bottom of the image, 6 bedrooms within the second floor with the associated accommodation, the ensuite, the kitchen type accommodation, the stairwells and storage. And then in the attic space, we have office and kitchen accommodation. If we look at the proposal, bottom image shows, again, the ground floor, stairwell retained, this time the office to provide laundry facilities for guests. This is the access onto Queen's Close itself, existing access utilised. On the first floor, you'll recall we had 5 bedrooms within the homeless unit, and 5 bedrooms would be provided within the first floor of the building. On the second floor, you'll recall we had the 6 bedrooms, and again, we have 6 bedrooms provided within the apartment style accommodation on that second floor. The upper floor, the attic accommodation, would now accommodate additional bedroom accommodation, so providing 13 bedrooms in total in comparison to the 11 bedrooms that were previously accommodated within the former homeless unit. Just a few images of the application site itself. This is the image on the left is looking in a westerly direction towards the High Street along Queen's Close. So we have the application property. You can see just straddling the Pend, includes upper floors on the building just to the left of the Pend access that you see there. And it includes the upper floor, the dormer window accommodation. Image on the right is looking in the opposite direction, so looking from the High Street along Queen's Close, and again you can see upper floor accommodation within the building that would provide some of the accommodation. And in addition, we have the upper floors of the building at the left-hand side of this image that would also provide serviced apartment accommodation. Again, just a couple of images. You'll note we do have objection to the application from a neighbouring resident who's concerned about impact of activity and disturbance, particularly associated with the access on the amenity of their property. You can see the entrance to the building in the 2 images on the screen before you. The window on the right-hand image, the window that you can see here, is a window in the neighbouring property. You'll see there's mesh screen over that window at the current time. The access arrangements don't change in association with this proposal. It's the same door that's utilised. There are slightly more bedroom accommodation units within the property. The nature of occupation, the level of occupation might actually be reduced by virtue of the serviced accommodation. It's unlikely to be occupied 365 days a year. But it's a town centre location. It's a location where our policies are generally promoting this type of use, and any adverse impact on amenity must be balanced against the desirability of securing a new use for what is a fairly important listed building. It's within the conservation area, close to the town centre, got good accessibility to surrounding shops and services. In terms of amenity concerns, you'll note we do propose a condition which requires a management scheme just to seek to try and mitigate impacts on those that live closest to the property. Finally, just an image from Churchyard Walk. Again, you can see the upper floors of the building just in this area, the windows in the gable serving rooms within the proposed development, and you can see the upper floor, the dormer windows in the property. So reasonably pleasant outlook for some aspects of the property, well located to provide serviced accommodation, tourist, commercial traveller type accommodation within the town. Indication is there's a requirement for that nature of accommodation. The application is considered to comply with policy, and it's recommended for approval subject to the conditions that are before you. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Mr Hunter. Do members have any questions for Mr Hunter's application at this stage? Councillor Dunhill.
I'm on. Just want to ask, where is the nearest drop-off point for guests and a taxi or a car? Is it on the high street? Is there provision there on the high street, or would people have to travel from the car park?
So there are potential drop-off facilities. There are potential drop-off facilities both on High Street, and Queen's Close itself does provide vehicular access up to a point, but similarly there'd be potential for drop-off on Baltic Street. The property is a reasonably short distance from bus stops, and also a reasonably short distance from the train station.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, I note from the environmental health colleagues in regards to the noise, and also due to the fact that the area is a public close. So it's obviously going to have a level of people walking past during the day. However, in the evening, I've obviously got a concern here. It's in regards to smoking outside in the area, because I'm presuming that the premises would be non-smoking. So my question is, how is this going to be managed? Is there someone in the property, as a service department? I would have a concern of people loitering about outside the property. And also, how's the waste going to be managed? I notice there's a lot of bins and whatever stored out there, outside there as well. How does that get managed? Presumably, there will be someone on site to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I'll take the points in turn, accepting that the applicant is here and might be able to provide some information as well. But dealing firstly with smoking, you'll see on the image there is an existing notice above or at the entrance which suggests that people should not loiter at the entrance, and we would expect the management plan to provide some detail in relation to how that would be controlled by the operator. My understanding is there's no intention for there to be management on site at all times. It's serviced apartments as opposed to hotel type accommodation, so I don't think there's to be on site all of the time. It is a public close. I think given its proximity to the town centre and the nature of the uses in the vicinity of the close, there's, I believe, a Chinese restaurant just at the end of the close. So I think it is an area where, as well as daytime activity, there's likely to be an element of existing nighttime activity or evening activity, and I think that would continue to be the case with the use as proposed. In terms of bin storage, I should have identified it on the plans. There is a proposal to utilise a small storage area behind a screen door within Queen's Close to accommodate the bins and recycling storage facilities.
Just so you know as well, Councillor Stewart, it will be on call. You can ask any other questions of the agent if you wish there. Okay, Councillor Duff, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I guess a question for Mr Hunter. I'm assuming that as the council operated this facility a number of years ago, it has extant permission for being operated as a homeless unit. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Duff. The premises certainly had permission to operate as a homeless unit. They have not been used for that purpose for, I believe, a considerable period of time. What's not entirely clear is whether the premises have been used for other purposes in the intervening period. There's some suggestion it may have been used for storage, and there is at least the potential that that could have interrupted the lawful use. So there is the potential that it could revert to homeless unit use without the requirement for planning permission, but that position is not absolutely certain. I couldn't sit here and say that that could happen, given there's a little bit of uncertainty around the planning history, but that is a potential.
No other questions for Mr Hunter? Okay, we have a couple of, one speaker and one person willing to take questions. Mr Stuart Clark wishes to address committee in support of the application. Just before I bring you in, Mr Clark, just to let you know, understanding order 12 of Angus Council, applicants, supporters and objectors are given the opportunity to address this committee with any points they wish the committee to take into account in writing to come to its decision. So if you want to go ahead, you've got 5 minutes to address committee, and then there may be some questions for you. Is that okay?
Hello. I didn't actually expect to be speaking on behalf of this application. I'd actually joined with regards to, I believe it's Gary Miller's, who also has an application in for Queen's Close.
Can I just interrupt you? No, that is the same application.
Right.
Okay. So it's just if you're wanting to speak in favour, you're actually speaking in favour of this application, which Gary Miller is linked to, I believe. Okay, that's fine. Certainly give. Do you want to go ahead and address committee?
I'd love to do that. Thank you. So just to give you a wee bit of background, we manage a number of properties in the Montrose area. The majority of the guests that we welcome are there for business, as you may imagine. I believe there's a need for more accommodation for these kind of clients. I'm aware that there are people that work in Montrose that have to stay closer to Aberdeen because they don't feel that the quality of accommodation in Montrose is what they're looking for. So we're obviously quite keen to bring a good standard of accommodation to Montrose. With regards to managing the properties, we have direct communication, obviously, with anybody that's staying. I would say the majority of people that stay with us in Montrose have stayed with us before. So we, more often than not, will know the people that are staying. And we provide a service if they're there for 2 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks. We look after the property, we look after their needs. If there's any concerns or anything they need, then we're on hand pretty much 24/7. As a company who manage a lot in the Dundee and Angus area, we're quite accustomed to also communicating with neighbours. So we do leave ourselves open to be contacted by neighbours if there's a need to introduce ourselves and give them that direction. So if they have any questions or concerns, either before or during the operation of the properties, then we're there to do that. When you have business travellers, they are obviously working during the day. They're coming home at night just to relax because they've got a busy day the next day again. So in our experience of managing properties that do welcome business travellers, they're what we regard as a fantastic neighbour to have. We do hear concerns on applications like this about the gentleman obviously raised concerns about smoking outside. People raise concerns about multiple people having access. In my experience, a lot of these concerns that are raised are no different than if it was an owner-occupier or a buy-to-let situation. I think the key difference is we have more control over that. So if there ever was something that happened or something that we didn't want to be happening at a property, we can control that and speak to the guests and make sure that that's managed, which is something that we would do. So I hope you would see this as a good addition for the town. We actively encourage people that are staying with us to shop, eat, drink in the town locally. So I hope it's a good addition for the town and the economy. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Clark. Just for the help us here, I take it your company would be actually, if this goes ahead, would be acting on behalf of the owners to manage the business. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Do any members have any questions for Mr. Clark? Councillor Clark.
Good morning, Mr. Clark, my namesake. Just really, I wanted to ask a couple of things, but the first one that's concerning me slightly is just that from the point of view of upgrading properties, there's going to be some necessity to get in and out there with workmen perhaps. So given just that that's a guide-type place, I would really just be asking, I suppose, a rhetorical question. You're going to take good care, if you get this, to ensure that you're not annoying everybody, because you are very near that house, the one that we've seen on the plans, and you're going to need to get in for upgrading and for plumbers to go and look at a washing machine and stuff. Really, it might sound a bit strange, but I've always on about this to be a good neighbour. So I'm hoping for a good answer here.
Well, I don't think your question's strange at all. I think it's relevant. Because we've been operating for about 7 years as a management company, the tradespeople that we use are known to us. It's very rarely we have to call upon a company or an individual that we're not accustomed to working with. They understand our business. They understand sometimes they need to go in when guests are there. So it can be very sensitive. I don't expect there to be a lot of coming and going once the property, when we've got guests in. Everything is new in a full refurbishment, so we're not expecting a lot of tradespeople to be coming back and forth. We obviously manage an operating property, so yeah, we'll have to be bringing a property to an area and then having concerns or issues with neighbours. It's not good for the property owner. It is not good for us as a business, and for the longevity of the business. It's something that we just can't have. It's not something we have with other properties. We manage about 70 odd properties at the moment, and we don't have any ongoing concerns with noise or tenants causing issues to neighbours. So we're looking to implement the same management for these properties. And like I say, if there is, we don't live in a perfect world. If there are any concerns or issues from neighbours, we're on it and we can take action. It can be anything from having a chat to the guests to say, can you not have the TV so loud, or whatever the issue is, to, not that we've had to do this before, with we'll have the power to evict somebody immediately. Like I say, I can't see that ever happening, but I'm just trying to let you know that we've got the power to do these things immediately if needed.
Chair, I think Mr Clark's answered my other question. Thank you.
Mr Clark, are there any other questions for Mr Clark? No? Okay, thanks very much for your input, Mr Clark. We also have online Ms Jackie Walsh. Now, Ms Walsh, I believe you're an applicant for the agent, or agent for the applicant, should I say? Is that correct? Or are you the applicant?
I am the applicant, Karen. So we have a planning consultant on board for the agent, sorry. So I'm the applicant and the architect for it.
Okay, so just for my clarity then in that case, so W9A Investments Limited, is that you?
That's my company, yes.
Your company, fine, okay. So we actually have the applicant online in that case. So you're not willing to, or you're not asking to speak to committee, but you're here to answer any questions they may have, is that right?
Yeah, I think the planning statement and stuff gave rise to our supporting document, and also Stuart's kindly given his supporting statement for us. So yeah, just if there was anything further to that, then I could potentially answer a question.
Okay, we'll give the committee the opportunity. So we have the applicant now online rather than just a supporter. So we'll start with Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yes, I had the opportunity about a year ago to get a tour around this property. One of the council's infrastructure managers took myself round it. I see you're going to, your intention is to put bedrooms in the upper floor. Can you just maybe tell us what the fire escape arrangements will be for that particular? Because my understanding at the time from council officers that there might be an issue putting, or there was an issue, I think, returning it to use as it was previously done by the homeless unit, because I think building regulations had changed, etc., and there was some concern about egress if there was a fire from the upper levels. So have you considered that issue?
We haven't put in for warrant as yet. There is a sprinkler system installed. So I am working on other projects which you have the one escape stair, and with the enhanced suppression system and fire doors and such like, then that is able to satisfy the regulations. We will obviously have to put in the warrant for this and go through that process to make sure that that can go ahead. And if it wasn't.
No, that's fine, Ms Walsh. You happy with that kind of stuff just now?
Yeah, thanks, convener. I'm sure our building standards colleagues will be up to speed on the regulations, and they need a building warrant as well. So this is just a planning application. So yeah, I'm comfortable with that situation.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Thanks very much, Ms Walsh, for coming along. We have no other speakers, no other questions. So have any elected members got any comments on the application? Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to see this planning application come forward. The homeless unit at Queen's Close has been an extremely long-running saga. I think it caught fire in something like 2009 or 2010. I think it was a fatal fire. I think there was someone lost their life, and it's been, without going over the whole story, it's been a long-running saga. I think to deal with Councillor Clark's concerns, the council has spent a huge amount of money on this building after the fire, refurbishing it, and then for a variety of reasons it was never reintroduced as a homeless unit. Clearly, I've kind of alluded to this in my question to Mr Hunter. Clearly, I'll choose my words carefully, the clientele for the new business, I suspect, will be a lot more neighbour-friendly clientele. There was a lot of concern when the council was refurbishing the building from neighbours who did not want the homeless unit returning to Queen's Close. So I think, and given that that operated legally beforehand, I would have thought this is bringing a listed building back into use. There is clearly a need in Montrose for this sort of accommodation. It is a town centre site, as I think Mr Hunter has said. There is a Chinese takeaway at the top of the close, so I don't think the noise issue is really a big issue, to be quite honest. It previously operated as a homeless unit with people coming and going. There are takeaways in that area, public houses, etc. So I'm absolutely delighted to see this coming forward, and I would wish Mr Clark and his associates well with running it. So I'm fully supportive.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Brace?
Yes, well, similar to Councillor Duff, I'm delighted to see this application coming forward. There may well be a need for people to leave the building and go and find somewhere to smoke. I would have thought that their numbers will be really small. The number of smokers is always declining, and I would assume that in the clientele that would be likely to use those premises, it'll be a very small number indeed nowadays. And anyway, there's a whole close that they can walk down. They don't need to stand outside the door in the rain. They can move away from the next door residence to the mouth of the close where it's covered to enjoy their cigarette if they feel the need. So I really don't see much issue at all with this. That close in the 70s and 80s and prior to that would have been very much busier than it is now, particularly on a Friday and Saturday night. It is much quieter now, and 13 guests coming and going once an evening to those apartments, or even twice, is not going to cause any issues that I can see. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Brace. Councillor Stewart?
Thanks, convener. Yeah, when the application was submitted, as I previously said, I did have slight concerns regarding the smoking in the close proximity to the neighbouring house, and its former use, which in terms of plan, it's not too dissimilar from this proposed use of accommodation, and there did appear years ago to be a number of issues with antisocial behaviour down there. the building's been unused since 2007, I understand. And to be honest, it's been a thorn in the side of the council for a number of years. Several offers have come in and then they failed for whatever reason. So yeah, costs to keep it wind and watertight, they have been astronomical for the council over the last 17 years. And that's money, to be quite honest, that the council can ill afford to be hemorrhaging. You know, and it's still something, obviously, we're still having to spend money to keep it wind and watertight just now, while it's not bringing anything back into the coffers. So, you know, I mean, given the assurances that we've had from the applicant's agent on how this would be managed, I'm delighted to support this. It's going to bring in much needed accommodation into the town, which in turn it will help the local economy as well, albeit on a small scale. Shops, bars, restaurants, they'll all be supported through this, benefit from this as well. So yeah, happy to support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. Just on the back of Councillor Duff, Braze and Stewart, I'm really glad to see this application. It's the perfect location. We need to try and encourage as much development as possible in high street locations. And obviously, we all know this has been a huge cloud hanging over for many, many years. I think it's also important to note the economic, especially around Montrose Port Authority and out in Charlton Road. So it's highly, it's not going to be stag and hen parties dancing down the coast. It's going to be business types and trades working here using takeaways, using the local bit, and it's a listed building back into use. So I think this is great, and I think there's only positive from it, and wish the applicant all the best for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gall. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. And likewise, in lots of ways, a bone of contention for lots of us elected members are looking right now. I'm not a local member, obviously, to Montrose, but right through Angus or other local authorities, we see buildings that are left in disrepair. And that's not a good thing. And it costs somebody. This is a good application. I was in Montrose just yesterday, a site visit elsewhere, certainly. But I saw that area. I remember the things that happened there. And whilst we another hat on, I would like to see premises for homeless people, etc. But we tried it, and you know that's now gone. It's been a gay while since that was like that. There's definitely need for this sort of thing, and given certain conditions, which we'll obviously have, it's not contravening anything. It's an old councillor I used to work with said it's going to red up a guy off a place. It's yes, okay, it looks a lot better than it did before, but nevertheless, it's going to bring something really vibrant, and surely that's what we need. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clark. Any other comments from members? No? Okay, just then to sum up, again, my opinion, the proposal provides for the reuse of a listed building as an apart hotel, providing much needed serviced accommodation in a manner that's in accordance with the development plan. So I'm in agreement with those who have largely provided their comments of support. I do have a concern, the amount of money that's been spent by Angus Council for a building to sit empty for all these years, and we really need to note that. Also, with the conditions that have been set, the management plan I think is very important. We've got the applicant online, please take note of that, particularly there are issues that are of concern to members, but as it does not give rise to unacceptable impacts on amenity and the environment, road safety or infrastructure, subject to the recommended conditions in this report, there don't appear to be any material considerations that justify refusal. So I'm going to move approval subject to the aforementioned proposed conditions. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Braze? Any amendment? No. Okay, in that case, planning application number 24/00044/full is hereby approved subject to the conditions stated. Thanks very much. We'll move on to agenda item 8. which relates to report 116/24, planning application number 23/00813/full by Angus Council for conversion of buildings into 16 affordable housing units and the erection of 3 dwelling houses at Invertay House, 3 Mall Street, Moneyfeith. Again, back to you, Mr. Hunter.
And thank you again, Convener. As you've indicated, a planning application for the formation of 19 affordable housing units on land at Invertay House, Mall Street, Moneyfeith. A very different application from the last one, but a lot of similarities. We have a substantial listed building, or a number of listed buildings in this case, which have been unused for a period of time. And again, the policy framework generally very supportive of proposals that provide acceptable reuse for vacant listed buildings. The application site itself, you see on the plan on the screen, red line site boundary identifies Invertay House itself in the centre of the image. We have the former janitor's house located just to the left, to the west of the main building, and the former canteen building sitting just to the right. All listed buildings located within the site. To give some context, we have Moneyfeith High Street, we have the Tesco store located just a short distance to the east of the site. Town centre boundary formed by Union Street, North Union Street, just as we see identified by the cursors. So the site is very close, albeit out with the town centre, but generally quite well located as a site to provide affordable housing units with good accessibility to local shops and services. A couple of images of the building. I'm sure members will be familiar with it. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have the former canteen building, Invertay House itself within the main image, and the janitor's house located just to the right-hand side of the image that we see here, with the main thoroughfare leading on to Moneyfeith High Street, just sitting to the north of the building itself, and former, I guess, playground areas associated with what were at one time school buildings. Another image, this time looking from the southwest, and you can see residential use to the south. We have a number of flatted properties located to the south of the building. There are some commercial uses located to the north on the opposite side of the road, and some commercial uses located to the east of the property, but nothing that would cause any issue in terms of compatibility of land use. You can see that these existing commercial uses sit quite comfortably with the residential uses in the surrounding area. Also, just draw members' attention to the bottom left of the screen. You can see the area of the green area located at the left-hand side of the screen, and you can see buildings that previously occupied that, which at this time, or at the time the picture was taken, were in the process of being removed. But this also forms part of the application site, and we'll look at that as we move through the slides. A layout plan that just shows the proposal for the development. We have Invertay House itself retained and converted to provide 14 one-bedroom units. We have the janitor's house, which is converted to provide 4-bedroom accommodation, and we have the former canteen building, which is converted to provide a 2-bedroom wheelchair accessible dwelling on the eastern boundary of the site. To the west of the site, we have a terrace of 3 new build houses, which would be located in the area of the site where you saw the buildings previously being removed. Existing access to the site would be used Roads colleagues are satisfied with the access and parking arrangements that are proposed to in association with the development. And you can see open space, combination of an area of public open space adjacent to Mall Street and more private space for occupants of the dwellings located adjacent to the principal elevation of the building itself. Drying areas, pedestrian connection through to Union Street, and private garden areas for the new build residential units at the western side of the site itself. In terms of the elevations, these are the proposed elevations, and the bottom left shows the proposed treatment for the principal elevation onto Mall Street. Very little change to that elevation, some re-roofing, stone repair, 2 chimneys on the ridge are removed, but the basic form, the basic character, the special interest of the building is retained. Top left image shows the principal south elevation. This is facing the properties to the south. You can see solar panels introduced within the roofscape of the buildings, but again, recognition that these are historic buildings that have historically quite poor thermal efficiency, and the proposals seek to ensure that there are reduced costs for the future occupants. Again, just draw attention to the area identified with the cursor. This is an existing window, which would be, the sill height would be reduced. It would form a pend through the building. You can see that replicated in the bottom right-hand image. So providing a pend through the rear section of the building, which facilitates access to upper floors and proposed accommodation that would be accommodated within that. The red area just identifies a stairwell which would be retained. It's been subject of discussion with Historic Environment Scotland just to ensure that a historic artefact, an element of historic importance is retained. And similarly, stained glass windows that are in that section of the building are retained. But as indicated in the report, Historic Environment Scotland generally satisfied that the proposal doesn't have a significant adverse impact on the special interest of the listed buildings, and fairly minimal intervention in terms of their appearance. We have floor plans. The top section to the left shows the front portion of the building addressing Mall Street, and maybe just draw attention to that element. We have windows, living room windows, which would be formed within the elevation facing Mall Street. That's utilising existing windows, but the internal space changed from former classroom, former office accommodation to living room accommodation. And you'll note we do have objection from a neighbouring resident concerned about overlooking and loss of privacy. That principally relates to the windows in this part of the building. Again, we'll look at that as we move through the images, but just to be clear, this is single story and it relates to existing windows within the property. Other than that, building converted to provide the 14 one-bedroom units within the main Invertay house itself. I spoke about the pend, and we have a section through the building that just shows the elevational treatment, internal elevational treatment to the pend itself. Bottom image, you'll see there's quite extensive use of glazing, which sits quite comfortably in association with the stone in the building, and again something that Historic Environment Scotland have no concern about in relation to overall impact on the building. The southern extent of the building from the flatted properties, you can see the quality of the architecture in the south-facing elevation, and that elevation remains largely unaltered with the addition of or with the alterations that are proposed. Main alterations are internal to the building, where much of the historic fabric has been lost. Just draw attention to the canteen building at the right-hand side of the image. You can see it currently contains two fairly sizable dormers within the roofscape. And if we look at the proposals for that building, those dormers are removed. Now, that's in order to take away high-level windows which would be difficult to clean, which compromise the usability of the internal floor space. As I indicated earlier, this is a building that's going to be altered to provide two-bedroom, wheelchair-accessible accommodation, and the proposed window details more appropriate for the type of accommodation that's proposed. If we move round, we have the janitor's house that you can see just at the left-hand side of the screen, and we have the area located to the west of that where the new houses would be accommodated. In terms of the janitor's house itself, again, fairly minimal alteration to the property, refurbishment to retain the appearance and the character of the property. Small extension located on its west elevation in a manner that's appropriate for the style of the building. But again, creating fairly adaptive floor space that can be used by a broad range of residents depending upon their future needs. Looking at the area where the new houses would be constructed, just the area that you can see, the grassy area in the slide in front of you, you can see neighbouring property located to the west of the application site. It does have some windows in its east-facing elevation, Velux window and patio doors that are screened behind the wall and fence that you see in this area. Proposed houses sit effectively in front of that area, so seeking to minimise impact on that property. In terms of the elevations themselves, you can see the properties as proposed. Bottom left image shows the elevation that would face Mall Street itself. So again, fairly traditional in terms of appearance, but slightly more modern in character, but appropriate for the site, bearing in mind the nature of the surrounding area. Pick out the west elevation. So this is the elevation facing the neighbouring property, and you can see that is a blank elevation. So seeking to minimise impact on the amenity of the neighbours to the west. Again, the red lines that you see on this image just show a Velux window that was removed to reduce the overlooking and moved onto the gable of the property. So again, broadly compliant with our policies in relation to impacts on the amenity of neighbouring properties. I spoke about the objection from the neighbouring property. That's the residential property that we see just at the left-hand side of the screen. That property has a garden area that sits between the house and the application site itself. Now you can perhaps make out from this image some screening is provided by an existing garage, and as we move round, this image is taken effectively standing at the windows within the application property itself. So we have a separation distance of about 9-10 metres from those windows to the boundary wall. This is an image taken at head height, so you get an impression of the screening that's provided by virtue of the existing boundary treatments, whether it's the garage or the boundary wall itself. You can perhaps also see the properties on Mall Street, the upper floor windows, which at the present time will provide some overlooking of the neighbour's garden area. So the formation of open space in this area is likely to generate additional activity. That additional activity may have some impact on the amenity of the neighbouring property, but in circumstances where that garden area is adjacent to the footway leading to the high street, where there's already some overlooking of that area by virtue of the flatted properties, the impacts in relation to privacy and amenity of that neighbouring dwelling are not considered unacceptable. Finally, just to go back to the layout plan for the site, it's a listed building, a site that contains a number of listed buildings. They are being reused in a manner that's compatible with policy. They are providing affordable homes, which are needed within the South Angus housing market area, and they're doing it in a manner that will provide a good living environment for future residents and which will minimise impact on those that live round about. Similar to the application in Montrose, any disbenefit for those that live round about must be balanced against the wider benefit of securing a new use for a building in a prominent location which otherwise has a distinctly uncertain future. Complies with policy and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions before you. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks, Mr Hunter. Members, questions for Mr Hunter? Councillor Melville.
Yeah, thanks. That was a really comprehensive and detailed presentation. Thank you for that. The two objections that are in talk about the impact on local amenities and local infrastructure, and I just wondered if yourself or Mr Barnes could comment on specifically the roads element of that, because obviously there's reference made in the second objection to traffic going in and out of what is a busy high street, and I have to say I am quite pleased that it's a busy high street because it shows that people are supporting local businesses, but particularly with some of the issues there in terms of the width of the road. So.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Melville. Yeah, as you say, it is a busy high street, so in terms of the number of properties that are going to be resulting from this development set against the base traffic levels, those levels will be relatively low and insignificant really in terms of the road safety there.
Okay, any other questions, Mr Hunter, on this? Councillor Durno?
Yeah. Considering the amount of people that are actually going to be living there, is the green spaces enough for the facility of people having dogs or small children? Because a lot of the places now there is a lot of dogs everywhere. And just looking at the plans, I mean, all it's tar at the moment. Is it going to take a while before the green grass grows? And is there room for a small play park or any play facilities, because it is quite far away from the nearest park?
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Durno. The properties are predominantly one bedroom. So 14 out of the 19 properties are single bedroom. Those properties that are larger and have potential to accommodate families have private garden areas that are generally in accordance with the requirements. The overall open space, so that there is the proposal to provide open space and garden area between the building and Mall Street, which I would suggest represents a fairly significant improvement to the townscape of the area in comparison to the black hardcore or tarmac surface that's there at the moment. The overall open space on site doesn't meet the standards that would normally be required, but the property is within a fairly short distance of Monifeith seafront, and there is the proposal to provide the pedestrian linkage from the site out onto Union Street. So I would suggest there's reasonably good access to the wider area.
Okay. Yeah, got to concur with Mr Hunter on that one. It's very hop, skip and jump down to the seafront there. Councillor Doran.
Thank you to Councillor Melville and Councillor Durno for those questions, because I was going to ask similar ones as well. Relating to the access to green space, it's been raised with me in the past about the challenges of things like bikes in Monifeith, particularly where we've got flats and things like that. So I wondered if there was any provision for that within this. The other question I wanted to ask was about affordable property. Normally we're talking with developers about a percentage of affordable property in the context of a wider development. This one is all affordable property, which is good to see, but I just had a concern around how that's managed, because we're approving this application now and it says it is affordable property. Is that binding throughout it? If the costs do go up with the construction, it'll still be provided as affordable property, because obviously this is going beyond what would normally be required within an established housing development. So my question related to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dorn. As you've said, this is a development by Angus Council. The identity of the applicant is not a material consideration in the determination of the application, but the condition attached to the permission requires all of the units to be retained as affordable housing units, and that's a condition that would apply unless or until that condition was varied following further application to the council. So that's a binding requirement that the properties are affordable, and the nature of that accommodation has been taken into account in assessing the planning application. So as Councillor Melville alluded to, there are concerns by residents in Monteith about impact on services, and there could be circumstances where a housing development of this nature would be required to make contribution towards, for example, education provision. That does not apply where affordable housing units are being provided, and that's whether it's affordable housing units that are being provided by the council or by private developers. But very specifically, the condition limits the entire development to affordable housing, and that's a binding requirement.
Okay, thanks very much.
Sorry, can I just
go ahead, just come back then, Councillor Doran, go ahead.
It was just about the storage of bikes and things like that, because a large number of these properties are one bedroom, so it's just if there was any provision for storage given in this application.
So we have the applicant's representative in attendance, and that might be a question that's best directed to them, if that's okay, because I don't know the answer.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, on that very point, we have Jonathan, I think it's Jonathan Cortese, is it? A good guess. Who represents property in Angus Council. So, Jonathan, I know you're not here to speak to committee, but if you want to take some questions, if you just, when Councillor Doran will address that again to you, and then just hit your microphone and speak so that we can pick it up on the YouTube, okay? So go ahead with your question again, Councillor Doran, for Jonathan.
Thank you. So my question relates to the fact that a large number of the properties within this development are one bedroom flats, and I'm aware that other flatted properties within Monteith do have some challenges with their storage relating to bikes, and obviously it's good to encourage people to use bikes and other methods of active transport. So I wondered if there was any provision within this development for bike storage, as we've got a large number of one bedroom flats.
Thank you. Yes, we do have, for the 14 one-bed flats, we do have covered secure bike storage. That's independent to the access of the doors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Do members have any other questions, Mr. Cortese? Mr. Melville, Councillor Melville.
Yeah, thanks. It was actually on a similar theme to that, so thanks to Councillor Doran for prompting me on this. But obviously, in a lot of developments, what we want to see is also electric vehicle chargers, and I just wonder if that has been incorporated in this as well, because obviously we want to make sure that we're trying to transition away from fossil fuel vehicles.
So we have 2 electric vehicle charging points on site, and we'll have infrastructure in place to cover the remainder of the car parking points. Thank you.
Councillor Braze.
Yes, Thanks, Convener, and further to Councillor Melville's prompting my memory. What about charging up your electric bike? Will that provision be available at the shelter?
As it stands, no.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Dunno.
Mine is the boring ones. Can you provide a dog bin, a salt box on the site? Because that's always a problem that we have with new developments, that they always forget the dog bin and the salt box. Thank you.
So we're doing the landscaping proposals at the moment, and we're looking at the vicinity of the nearest dog litter bin, and we will be providing one in the communal space just off Mall Street if there's not one there. Yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Cortese? No. Thanks for your time. Thanks very much.
Yes, thanks, Convener. This, I think. Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, this is a hugely welcome development. I think it's really positive to see the reuse of this listed building to provide new affordable homes for people who need them. Obviously, we as a council want to maximise our offering for people in that regard, and this will certainly boost our efforts to do that. There have been no objections by statutory consultees, and while I understand and have heard the objections raised by the two objectors, I am confident, having had that sort of discussion with officers, that these impacts can be appropriately mitigated. I'm also really happy to hear, further to questions from Councillor Doran and myself, that there will both be provision for bicycles and also for electric vehicles. Obviously, we need to make sure that the climate is at the heart of everything that we're doing, and obviously there's also going to be PV panels on these, which is good to hear as well. So yeah, as a councillor representing Monifee and Stidlaw, fantastic to see this. I think it's going to be a really welcome boost to our affordable housing offering, and I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Clark.
Yep, again, I'm not a local member and a wee bit jealous here this morning. But I've been doing a lot of shoving material through people's letterboxes of late for a reason I'll not go into. And we do notice older premises that just don't have anywhere for people to put these kind of things. So welcome, Mr. Cortese, in answer to the questions. There's another more serious point, in that we as elected members struggle with housing all the time. This is great, this is wonderful for Angus. I'm just so chuffed that they've done this, because single people in particular, and smaller, maybe just couples or whatever, any kind of make-up of small units like that, small family units, I mean, the kind of choices they have are really few and far between, and they end up in properties that are really, the rents are really quite bad if they can't manage to buy a property. So nothing but good here. I think this is just tremendous. And again, I'm jealous. I wish it was in Forfar.
Councillor Doran.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased to see this development, and like Will, I'm happy with the mitigations that have been discussed relating to the objections in the proposal. I've worked with quite a number of people who have housing challenges in this area, who particularly want to stay within Monifee. I'm really pleased to see these coming as affordable properties, and I hope that is doable and is manageable. It maybe would have been great to see some more properties that were slightly larger than one bed, because I know that there is a demand, but I can see that there are some obviously limitations within maintaining the structure of the building within doing that. So pleased to support this proposal. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Doran. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Convener. Yes, I mean, there's been a long-standing issue in South Angus in the provision of enough social housing, and delighted to see this one going ahead. I'm tempted to say this is almost as long-running a saga as the Montrose homeless unit, because it seems to have been on the agenda for the council for at least the last 10 years. So it's good to see we're actually progressing to convert this former school into housing. It's good to hear.
Thanks very much. Any other comments from members? No? Okay. I have to say that I agree with the comments from fellow members here without any doubt. I mean, the reuse of a listed building and with all the benefits, as Councillor Melba has mentioned, for recharging and solar panels and things, it makes complete sense. And to add to what Councillor Clark has said, a very valid point, single bedroom, this will actually give almost a community, know your neighbour, to people having single bedroom accommodation, because it can be very lonely if you're in with one person or a one bedroom property. So on that note, the proposal provides for the reuse of listed buildings, as I've said, and the provision of new build accommodation to provide much needed affordable housing in South Angus. Accordingly, the subject to conditions stated on page 40 and 41 of our papers give rise to no unacceptable impacts on amenity, the local environment, road safety or infrastructure, as we've heard. And on that basis, I'm going to move approval subject to the aforementioned proposed conditions, and Councillor Melville will second that. There are no amendments? No. In which case, planning application number 23/00813/full is hereby approved subject to the conditions stated. Thank you. That brings this meeting of Development Standards to an end today. Thank everyone for attendance and their contributions. Enjoy the rest of your day, which I know is going to be busy. Thanks very much.